distribute it maybe a little bit differently. For the last 4 years, we've been working on increasing student results. I describe in here how there's the response to intervention, where we require teachers doing tier 1 and tier 2 for those kids who need more, and then there are specialized teachers and assistants and tutors that provide tier 2 and 3. The cuts that we're making, which will show you the impact, severely impact our ability to reach the goal we've had of really implementing this response intervention model. There are no funds to improve technology, so all of our technology initiatives are not being addressed here. And our accreditation concern that we read in the letters that they've had in the past is that, they expect us to be providing recurring funds to replace the computers, to replace the technology. We have not done that in this budget. It's been a problem in the last couple of budgets, but I think what's the problem now is we're forced with eliminating the graphic arts program because we don't have computers that can run the software. Elementary libraries will not be staffed, and therefore will depend on parent volunteers. There is some concern at Pembroke about meeting contractual obligations because these librarians have provided specialist coverage for prep time, but we need to meet contractual obligations, so we will have to come up with a creative solution. The special education students from out of district are reflected in the budget based on only what we know. Dave's doing a great job, working with our programs in-house and bringing students back, but we haven't built them into the budget because none of that has been completely determined. Supplies have accounted for less than 2% of our budget each year. I think Eric was getting at this, which these cuts that we're proposing are going to reduce that further. I think it was 1.3% of the budget was going to be used on supplies, and if it weren't for the generous donation of parents, community groups, and PTA, GEF, federal and state grants, we wouldn't even be able to provide the basic supplies.
Right, that 2% doesn't come close.
That doesn't come close to what we need.
And parents get a long list at the beginning of the school year now.
It's $150,000 roughly,
Yeah.
in a district of
Right.
its size.
So I say that only because, just for the public's benefit, that, we have over the last 3 years, reduced from our requested budget, as have all department heads and all departments in town. This isn't just a school issue. This is a town concern. And, we work in coordination, and we are the largest budget. So clearly, I'm sure there are people who, think we need to work within our means. And we will work within our means. But the point here, and I'm just making these comments, is that this is not like we have a lot of fat in our budget and we have a lot of things that, we're going to cut and all cuts will be painful. We're talking about having the very basics at this point and dipping down below what is the basic level. We are at required net school spending.
Which is the bottom of what the state will allow us to spend.
That's correct.
And basically if we're being forced to work at a statutory type level, that's what the services are that we're going to be able to provide.
Right.
If it's not statutory, it's going to cost more.
Right. So before we even look at this cut list, cuts to get to level services, the level services budget, we already have made, unfortunately, athletics 100% funded. We're funded by the parents. We are looking at clubs and activities which used to be partially funded, being set up in such a way that if you want to run a club, the advisor will cost what it will cost.
100% self-sufficient.
And based on, if you know what the cost is, then you need to find enough students to do it and then figure out what the cost would
So
be.
these cuts are in addition to that. That's already been cut.
Well, yeah, they start
So
to be at the
basically, user
front.
fees have gone up for all our clubs in athletics.
Right. We haven't, but that's something we aren't prepared to talk about tonight in terms of the user fees.
No.
But that's something that we could talk about on the 3rd.
But we're taking out the $33,000
Right.
that we had in choice that we put towards athletics, as well as, what else do we put, like another 12 or
12 or
10.
12 or
10,000 for
13,000?
student
10,000 for
activities
student
and
activities.
last year, and of course you have a memo in front of you.
Right, that-
Talking about another 12,500
For
for
athletics, so we're talking about
55,000.
55,000
Yeah.
that we will not be putting towards athletics and clubs
Right.
going
This
forward.
also assumes transportation fees at the state level. That isn't included in the cut list. That was already determined when we created the level services budget, that we would need to do that. And we were talking about, we can describe that in more detail, we were talking about doing this, what the state law is. That will, again, add to the backs of the people who, are recipients of the service. So would you like me to just go down this list and then entertain questions of which
Yeah, I
any of
think
us can
just
do?
for the people who are here, about, I'm sure you have questions, but
I just want to say, I keep getting asked, what is level services? What does that mean?
what we have
okay.
now.
We have now.
So that's what
next
it
year.
means now. Okay,
Right.
so, and that's what I've been trying to say, but I just wanted to make sure that
Level
that was
services
the
is what
truth.
we have
And
right
level
now.
funded means the same
Same money.
dollar amount we have this year.
Yeah,
Okay.
The
Having
problem,
the same
you.
thing next year.
Right.
the issue that we talked about at the beginning, where we said it's about $27,000 more than we have this year, it's because we're required to meet net school spending as set by the state. So we'll go up by $27,000. That's where we came up with that additional
Number.
amount.
now, I think the other thing that is important to say to the public is, if the town were to give us $11,600,000, which that is what they did, it doesn't cost $11,600,000 even last year to run the schools.
Right.
The last year, the federal stimulus money accounted for $700,000 plus of the cost of running the school district. In addition to that, we have some grants and revolving accounts that have staff positions on them. So the operation of the schools is in the $13 million range.
It's in the 14 million.
Was that 14?
14 million dollar range. But we're receiving 11.6 from the town.
And that other additional spending that additional funding has gone away.
The $700,000 has
Well,
gone.
I just want these are the questions I keep getting asked, and so I just
Well,
want everybody in the
they're good
public to
questions.
know.
They're good
Yeah.
questions.
And the other part too is if you think about the 11.5 million, what comes from chapter 70 for the schools? Is it 4? Somewhere around 4? 5?
Just under 5,100,000.
All right, so of the 11.5 million, 6.5 million is funded by the town, 5 million is funded by the state.
Approximately 38%.
But then we have our benefit side.
That's we have the
funded by
benefit
town.
side, right, which
Right.
the town picks up.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we proposed a level services budget of
Instead of
$12,422,000. Of 899,000 of that, okay, or 7.8% was the stimulus. Okay, only 176,000 is the new money, is what the budget would have gone up if the stimulus money were in the budget. Does that make sense?
Which it is not.
Which it is not.
That's
Okay.
correct.
So what would have happened is if the money that we would have, if we had received the money the way we
Right.
normally received the money back in 2010,
Through
Right.
chapter
for that fiscal
70.
year through chapter 70, that would have been in our base. We're
Right.
not having this conversation right
Right.
now.
Right.
Right.
The town's okay, the schools, we're gonna
Right.
get through another year and we'll
Right.
do okay.
Right.
But because it was a one-time stimulus versus becoming part of the chapter 70 money that would come into the town to be shared with the schools, that's what's hurting us right now at this
It's
point in
created
time.
a structural deficit,
You don't
that's
have
what's
to give me
happening.
the answer now, but could you, I'm curious to get the hard number of 2 years ago, what we had for chapter 70 money prior to the stimulus, and then what we have today, 2 years, or is it 3 years
Pretty
later?
close.
It'll be much
Yeah,
better.
Talking about
pretty
stimulus.
close, you're saying.
Is it
Yeah.
close? So the 1.2 million we got was almost a wash with 1.2 out of our chapter
Yeah,
70?
the stimulus money essentially backfilled
Backfilled.
the reduction.
I know that's
in
what we
chapter
always
70.
say, but how
It-
close was that number? Was
was
it
exact.
identical? It was
It was
exact?
Pretty close, yeah.
Okay.
It was-
Exact.
It said, this is how far below foundation you will be, which you can't be below foundation. And that's why they said 1,026,000, I think, was the number.
1,026,000.
That gets you to level.
That gets you to what you're required, your foundation level.
So that would have been part of chapter 70.
Yes, if
Correct.
that had been the case, then we wouldn't be, we
No, we'd be
wouldn't
fine
be in
right
the
now.
structural
Right,
deficit
it's the
that we're
1.2
in.
million that we knew we were, 3 years ago, we were gonna be short, and here we are today, 1.2.
And we said this when we.
We're saying
received
899,
the
but-
money.
Yeah, we did, and I
Right.
think the other thing, Ann, you made a good point last meeting when you said, when you reminded us in the public that, the $700,000 that we took and used was not, it was money that we needed in order to, it was part of the required net school
To meet-
spending.
Right.
It wasn't in
like we could
addition,
turn it down, we
it wasn't
had
in
to take that
addition
money.
to it. We
Absolutely.
wouldn't have met net school spending if
Right.
that were the case.
And it
So I
was
think that's
required.
important.
Right.
And the other piece of that was that they backfilled our chapter 70 money the first year we received the stimulus. So they cut it, backfilled it with the stimulus money.
Right.
and left us,
Right.
further below where we should
And
be.
if you remember, you did, I think, the fiscally responsible thing and distributed that money, instead of spending it like many other districts did in 1 year.
We spread it out.
We spread it over 2 years so that we haven't faced the cuts that we're gonna be faced with now.
Right.
Until now, hoping there would be some other, answer to the dilemma, but
Well, we
it's
thought,
not gonna
we
happen.
were hoping
The
the
state-
economy would come around, the state aid would come
Right.
around, and while we might have a bad situation today, it wouldn't be nearly as bad as it is.
But not just come around, we were assuming 25%.
back.
Yeah.
Right.
Right,
Not even-
exactly,
not even half.
Exactly, George, right.
So I think for the purposes of the rest of this discussion, I think it'd just be wise to let Carol go through
Read
these
the list.
lists. And as questions arise from the committee, or,
Why don't you wait till we go through the list?
exactly, we'll just hold
So you're gonna
everything.
I
read
know
the
you're
names, one of
dying,
these?
George.
Well, because I would like to go a little backwards on this.
All right, what do you want to do?
If these cuts are implemented,
Mm-hmm.
where are we in class size in the end? I see these are incremental, so it's like the answer changes when you take another position off.
Yes, but, so what, I'm not sure I,
She
I
gives
think
it in the
elementary was given
explanation.
in the
That's what's
rationale.
driving my comment.
You gotta
Okay.
kinda go with it, because she's moving the classes up.
All right.
You asked
I
us.
think she did a decent job of it, you
You
just.
asked us to set up a
Go
prioritized
ahead.
list, right?
I'm not saying the word. Go
So,
ahead.
and the thinking behind it is the things at the bottom of the list, if there was monny coming back, those would be the things that would come back in
I'm an
first.
accountant.
I know, George, it's a painful process for you.
difficult.
It wasn't easy for any
Well,
of
the
us
only other
either.
thing that could accompany this, to George's point, would be a spreadsheet that shows grades today, grades next year.
Well, we can get
and-
you that.
And we
We'll-
can do that easily off of
Well, we
what you
can tell
verbally
you that
gave us
as we're
here.
going through this, because the
Right.
principal's here and they'll know that off the top of their head. Okay, so the first thing on the list is we would propose to reduce the supply lines that are currently in the budget on some kind of a targeted basis. That's $10,000, $10,323. And what the impact of that is that we would have to find other sources, and unfortunately, probably asking parents to provide more classroom supplies. Custodial maintenance, we're gonna need to come up with a creative way to, work with getting the supplies that we need there. And then, this is about a 6.5% cut in overall supply expenditures. And as you recall, I said, it's a very small percentage of our budget anyway, and this will decrease it. We had in school choice, I think, Ann, you were mentioning, we had $36,000 for athletics. 33, sorry, plus
No,
10 for activities. What we did is we took that out of choice and we basically saved a high school teacher. So it's a cut to, it's a high school teacher. This does mean that we'd have to increase fees from the athletic revolving
Do we have a
account.
ballpark on that? As far as
$87.
how much?
80, if you did it across the board like you do now.
Yes.
$87.
That's the minimum, that's,
Minimum.
so we were talking about it being maybe $100.
Yeah.
But by the way, so you just had $87 for
As a minimum.
athletic
Minimum.
fees. The supplies is about a $75 to $80 fee for each parent. If you take your number and divide it by 1,700 students,
Yeah, I'm not,
$6
I know right now that the.
right? I mean, these are just all fees going on to every single parent.
I would strongly hope that I could, at least a good portion of that, we could achieve through a pre-buy.
If we
Buy
ended
some
the year.
custodial supplies.
No, but Derek's point though, just so the public knows that
Yeah.
the shifting is a parental tax.
It is a
Another
parental
tax.
tax.
It's just another
We-
thing.
we-
It's a tax
we-
for having-
Supplies don't go away, we still
Wait.
need the basic supplies,
Absolutely.
now it goes on to the burden of the parents.
We completely agree and we feel
Oh, no,
awful
we're-
about
yeah,
it.
we're not- yeah.
Right, you
I'm
know what I
not
mean?
Yeah,
pointing
We
to
agree.
you, I'm
No,
just
I
trying
know,
to state the fact.
believe us,
yeah.
we know what this looks like.
Making sure.
Then, of course, we have the,
Sorry.
all right, we have utilities costs that we would plan to move to revolving accounts, $10,000. This is not a good practice.
No.
You know, we've tried very hard to reverse this trend, and as we've been able to move things, back into the budget that are legitimate budget expenses. But in this case, we would need to take the $10,000 and shift it to our revolving account. So for example, we run some after-school programs that use our buildings later into the early evening. Their lights are on, the building's being heated, so it's legitimate to move some of those. But, obviously, $10,000, is significant, but if we distribute it, we figure if we distribute it across strategically, then, the impact on any one revolving account won't be dramatic.
Do you have reporting, like legal reporting requirements that you have to be able to say, you know, X number, I don't know, kilowatts or
Not on
usage?
that account. That one's pretty general though, right?
Not on the revolving account.
Okay,
No,
all
the only
right,
one
so-
that, the only one that has
you
a
know,